Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Motivate Property Podcast. It is Thursday, the 26th of June, 2025. Hope everyone out there is having a fantastic week. So guys, this week we are talking about entitlement. Right now, I just want to make something really clear before we get stuck into it. This episode is not going to be for everybody. So just to be clear, this conversation is really coming from a very common attitude that I'm starting to hear and see and feel out there in the market. And it's something that I think is really worth us speaking to in terms of addressing it and making sure that A, this is not your mindset, and B, if this is your mindset, really taking a good hard look to make sure that this is actually going to serve you long term, right? Now, I have been hearing a lot of things out there, all right? So I'm going to give you guys some examples of some of the comments that I sort of hear. One is, the government needs to sort out things like the cost of living, or wages haven't kept up with house prices. I'm entitled to the pension. I'm entitled to welfare. I pay taxes, therefore I should be able to afford housing. Housing shouldn't be an investment class. It should be a right. The government should be paying for that, right? So these are all the kind of comments and stuff that we've sort of been hearing and seeing over the last couple of years since obviously the back of COVID with super high inflation at that sort of 7% mark. Now, the fact of the matter is, guys, and I guess this is really what we're really sort of addressing in today's show. Unfortunately, that mindset is toxic and it's entitled. Now, really what I'm saying when I say that, people are acting as if the world owes them something, as if the government owes them something, as if society owes you something. Now, unfortunately, when you've got that mindset, not only are you limiting yourself and all the things that are possible for you, but you basically become a victim of the world, right? It's everyone else's problem. It's not your problem. It's everyone else's fault. It's not your fault. It's everyone else's responsibility to make you wealthy, and it's not your issue. The reality is, guys, you are going to stay broke if that's you. Now, I think to really deal with this, we've also got to have a good chat about how and where this came from, right? Being someone who wasn't born in Australia, one of the things that I really did know growing up is Australians have a level of grit that I don't think a lot of other countries around the world have at the same sort of level. Now, obviously, there are some very rough countries out there. I mean, Russia's a good example of this. Most of it's covered in snow. The people who are living in remote communities, with practically nothing, they're self-sustained, living in those kind of conditions. Obviously, there's going to be a level of grit that they're going to have versus, say, someone living in New York or Los Angeles. But overall, as a country, we are a very tough country. We're a very tough people. But over the last probably 15, 20 years, we've basically turned ourselves into a nanny state where we're expecting the government to make all of our decisions, choose everything for us, do everything for us. And fundamentally, just stand and look at how many people around you are victims today. How many people are blaming everyone else for their problems, waiting for someone else to come and fix things, blaming the government. And unfortunately, this victim mentality, this victimhood is not going to get us anywhere. In fact, it's going to get us into some really bad problems, right? And that's really, I guess, kind of where today's conversation is coming from. So like I said, guys, if this is you, I hope you're going to get value out of what we're going to say today. If this is not you, you're not a victim, you're someone who takes responsibility of shit. Now, the other thing I just want to say before I get into this, I know this show, obviously we're a property podcast, right? So we help our clients with property and businesses and, all the fun stuff that, to help them get empowered about their money and finances and make better decisions for themselves. I know in this show, I do talk about the government quite a lot, right? And obviously the government plays a very important part in, rules and regulations around property investment and really the rules of what we can do. And I know I've said this a few times, right? Like our government today is probably one of the bigger risks when it comes to property investment and you actually getting some kind of return. When I say the government, I'm talking about government policy, their decisions, the different levers that they're pulling. It plays such a massive role in the outcome of property investment. That's one of the reasons why it's continuously on this show. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you probably get the sense that I don't really like the government. And it's not that I don't like, a government. I don't like the government in general. I think that, especially over the last several decades, I'm pretty confident that the system fundamentally is fairly corrupt, right? Now, that doesn't mean that there are bad players actively doing the wrong thing. I'm talking about the incentive structure. If you've got to go and lobby to big corporations to get funding, the fact of the matter is you're going to start making decisions and put in policies that are going to be benefiting those businesses. That's just fundamentally how it's going to work behind the scenes. What that means is politicians are making decisions on behalf of corporations and not on behalf of the people like it's designed. So that's why I've got a very strong opinion, and again, it is my own personal opinion, that fundamentally our political system is corrupt. Having said that, I know often I'm kind of hanging shit on the government for these bad decisions. And I'll be the first to admit I will call them out when they do bad things. And if they do good things, I'm the first person to celebrate and take that as a win. Having said that, I also don't want to give you guys the illusion that just because I'm critiquing the government, therefore it just means that everything's just the government's fault. You just kind of wipe your hands of it, put it in their court, and just wait for them to come and fix your problem. It will never happen. Never happen. If you're playing that game that way, this episode is absolutely for you, and this is really where I'm coming from in today's show. All right? When it comes to this entitlement mindset, it is the belief that we deserve. Now, the problem with that is when we play the game that we deserve something, it means that we're just simply not going to take the actions to go and earn it. We're just not. Like, that is the best way to stay broke forever. If you have a belief that you deserve something, by default, you will lose. Because there are people out there who don't believe they deserve it. They're going to work 10 times harder, take way more risks, work way smarter than you, and they're going to outperform you every day of the week. And unfortunately, they're going to be the winners. Entitlement mentality is victim mentality. It's you giving all of your power away, giving it to the government or giving it to somebody else, whether it's state government, federal, doesn't really matter. But the point is you're blaming and expecting them to come and fix your problems. Like, that entitlement is going to get you absolutely nowhere. Now, I know over the last several decades, right? I mean, obviously the last couple of decades in particular, like a lot of our politics, and I am talking about Perth, I know Victoria's had this issue. There's been a few issues between New South Wales and Queensland of having a lot of, let's just say, strong left-wing leaders. When I say strong, they'd actually move the needle quite a bit in the left direction. So things like, for example, Medicare, Centrelink support, fundamentally, we are now living in what we call the nanny state, right, here in WA, right? And for those who are in WA, when I say nanny state, it shouldn't offend you. We hear it every second week. And it really is the fact that the government and decision-making is getting further and further up the chain and away from the people. Now, there is an argument that our government doesn't trust and doesn't want the average person to have responsibility of their own life. It's almost like as we continue to keep these left-wing leaders in power, like the decision-making is continuing to go up further and further up the chain, right? So the government has to take more responsibility, provide more things like healthcare, Centrelink, all these, different welfare options. And they're taking the power from the people, right? Now, with that, there comes a cost. Like, yes, it's great to sit here and say we're getting free money from the government. But at the end of the day, you got to understand there is a cost of doing that. And I'm not even talking about the cost on our tax and increasing taxes over time and having to squeeze money out of the market to essentially pay for it. I'm talking about the mentality that's now inbreeding in our society. It's breeding victimhood. Now, when you've got, headlines every second day, rising welfare costs or public expectations for handouts or first-time owners grants and, rent caps and cost of living subsidies and all these different things, it's really giving us the illusion that it's the government's responsibility to come and fix this for us. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that the government doesn't have a say or can't help us when it comes to the cost of living, right? But they certainly can. But to sit here and make that the government's problem and you do absolutely nothing about it, that is the mentality that's going to keep you broke forever. Forever. Now, just understand, if you're the kind of person that wants more welfare, wants more Centrelink, wants more, entitlements from the government, you've also got to understand that you're actually fighting for socialism. Right? That is a one-way ticket to be a slave forever. See, the problem with entitlement, firstly, it robs you of accountability. All right? Believing others should fix your situation instead of you fixing your own situation means that you're a victim to the government. When it comes to wealth, if you're waiting for handouts from the government, or you think you're entitled to the pension, you're entitled for certain things in the government to essentially, get you out of this problem, you got to understand you're letting opportunities fly you by on a daily basis. Opportunities are everywhere. When you pull your head out of the sand and understand what an opportunity is and see how many there are, they are coming across and running past you on a daily basis. I know they do for me. But the point is, if you're sitting here playing the resentment game, waiting for the government to come and fix your problem, your brain is not primed and looking for opportunities. It's tunnel vision on waiting for someone else to come and fix your problem, and it's never going to happen. The entitlement mindset will keep you waiting for someone to come and save you. Guys, no one is coming to save you. No one. Not me, not our team. Like, sure, we can try and help you build wealth, but the point is you're the one who's got to walk the path. The government's not going to come and fix it. The police aren't going to knock on your door and say, hey, look, we just want to give you $100,000 because you're a really good person or you really need some help. Like, no one is coming to save you. The only person that can save you is yourself. And to be fair, it doesn't matter about the cost of living. It doesn't matter about the cost of real estate. The fact of the matter is, the cost of living has been a problem for a good couple of years now, particularly here in Australia. Off the back of COVID, the government printed a shitload of money. Inflation went to upwards of 7%. And we saw prices and the cost of living get further out of control, and wages have not kept up at the same pace, right? That is an absolute fact. And there is not a lot that we can do about that. However, have you guys noticed that I haven't actually been talking about the cost of living? Now, the question is, why have I, over the last couple of years, not really been talking about the cost of living? Because for me, it's not a problem. And the reason why it's not a problem is because I'm not sitting here blaming the government, waiting for them to fix it. I'm making my own decisions. I'm taking my own actions so the cost of living becomes irrelevant to me and my family. That is power. Now, one of the comments that I hear is, we deserve housing, right? I mean, we deserve shelter. I mean, food, water, and shelter are three human things for human beings to survive. Obviously, food is not free. Like, yes, sure, you can go down to the Red Cross or the Salvos every day and get a free meal, sure. But, general terms, like, food is just simply not free. Water, sure, if you want to start collecting your own rainwater, obviously it's thousands of dollars for that setup, in terms of purifying and remineralizing water, especially from the pollutants that are in the air. But the point is, there is an argument you kind of somewhat can get water for free. I don't really believe that. It is a cost. And then finally, you've got yourself at, the cost of housing or the cost of shelter. Now, when people have this attitude of, they believe that housing should be a right, firstly, food and water aren't necessarily a right. I mean, technically, our bodies are made of water. There's water. There's an abundance of water on the planet. Sure, you can't just go drink the ocean water. You could if you could desalinate it. But fundamentally, consider that food is not a right. So for people to sit here and say that shelter should automatically be a right for some strange reason, I simply just can't understand, or buy into that. Now, secondly, the question that I would have for the people who think that housing is a right or they deserve housing is, well, then who gets to dictate or decide who gets to live in Cottesloe in a mansion on the beach and who gets to live in, say, Armidale? I mean, the fact of the matter is there is a huge spectrum between a 3-story mansion and a shitty old fibro shack and, on the foot of the hills. The point is, who gets to make the decision between A or B? Right? So there's got to be some other variable that comes into play. And obviously right now we've got a system based on money, therefore it's money. Another thought to consider here. When you don't earn something, there's so much less value in it. The best things in life are earned. If you've got to sacrifice for something, it is so much more rewarding when you get it. If you're the person who's planning long-term and thinking long-term and making moves long-term, right? I mean, you're going to outperform the people who are only thinking short-term or thinking of the past. If you're the one who's willing to take calculated risks and those risks pay off, it is so much more powerful and so much more rewarding for you to have a win than the person that's taking no risk and playing it safe. You're the guys who can master delaying gratification. If you're able to sit there and hold off a decision and hold off on any kind of gratification today and wait 5, 10, 15 years to then get that reward, obviously it's going to be way more powerful than being able to just get it today. Thanks to credit cards, most people don't need to delay gratification on a day-to-day basis. So if they want that phone or the iPad or whatever the hell they want to go buy, if they're just buying it and buying it and buying it and buying it, like, there's no real reward. Like, they continuously keep buying because the reason they're buying it, they think it's going to fill some kind of void inside of them. Because there was no delay in the gratification, it doesn't fill the void and they're off to buy the next thing. And they're on that hamster wheel of constantly flooding their brain of dopamine because they're not able to delay any kind of decision making or any kind of gratification. I mean, the amount of people that have worked hard, sacrificed, taken risks, delayed gratification, planned long-term, actions long-term, consistently over time, are so much more satisfied and fulfilled than those kids, trust fund babies who inherit millions and millions of dollars. that you are so much more satisfied and fulfilled at the end of the day if you're the one who sacrificed to make it work. Despite what the government's going to give you, despite what handout you're going to get, despite what you believe or feel that you deserve or what you're entitled for, all of that is nonsense. Now, the fact of the matter is, life is not fair. Life has never been fair. I mean, look, if everyone's starting at a different point, if you're born into a family with 10 siblings and you guys can barely afford to survive versus the only child who grew up in a mansion, the point is that there is no such thing as equality. The market doesn't care. Society doesn't really care. I mean, sure, nowadays, if you get to be a victim and throw your hand up and say that I'm a victim, sure, there is some kind of social point that you do get when you're on the left. But the fact of the matter is, that's not going to make you wealthy. If you believe that you deserve something, if you believe you're owed, if you believe you're entitled, you're giving away the power to create that. What you are entitled to do, and every person in this market, in a free market, this is what I encourage you to use your entitlement for. Working harder and smarter than the people around you. You're entitled to do that, and that's going to put you ahead. Making decisions and taking risks. If you choose not to make decisions because you're waiting for the government to make a decision, I'm going to be making decisions much faster than you, and I'm going to be getting further ahead from you. You are absolutely entitled to be accountable and take responsibility of your life. If you're going to sit there and wait for the government to do it, guys, I promise you, you will get beaten every day of the week by people who are willing to take responsibility. See, what people want is they want wealth without risk. They want money without sacrifice. They want a comfortable life without effort, free homes, rent controls, free bailouts, with no effort or energy exchange for that. Guys, that is not how the world works. The culture we have today in Australia is breeding victimhood left, right, and center. And that victimhood will destroy us. There is no way other than taking accountability for your life. What I request, we as a people need to stop blaming our circumstances. We need to stop blaming our government. We need to stop blaming the banks and the housing market and your boss and wages. We need to stop blaming shit and start taking actions in line with what you actually want. The question that I would have to pose to each and every one of you, instead of complaining, instead of being resentful and bitter about the world and how unfair life is, I want you to ask a question. And if you have to write this question down, put it on your fridge, brand it onto your forehead, tattoo it on your wrist, what can I do that's going to put me in a better position? That is the only question that's relevant here. What can I do that's going to put me in a better position? Now, when you orient your brain in that particular way, you're putting a mirror in front of yourself and asking yourself a question. What can I do? Not what the government can do, not what Entitlement can do, not what my boss can do, not what anyone else can do. What can I do to put me in a better position? That is the question of the week. I really do hope you guys start posing that to yourselves in order to start getting some better results. Like I said, guys, I wanted to address this because this is something that I am seeing that's rife, particularly in the mainstream media. Talking about the cost of living, talking about housing costs and wages and this and that, and it's always framed in the exact same way. It's the government's problem. The government's going to come and save us. It's got nothing to do with you as the individual and, trying to really take the responsibility out of your hands. But understand, guys, that propaganda is breeding victimhood. Thanks for listening.